There was a harmonica player in the band, and I was so inspired. I went home. I think I played that lick there just accidentally, and it's like, oh my God, there's this pattern, a method to the madness.
This is Arts Educators Save the World, where successful artists and their mentors talk about how arts education transformed their lives. Hey, welcome to Arts Educators Save the World, a podcast where artists and their mentors talk about the impact of arts education on both their lives. I am flying solo again today. Alec is taking some much needed work and relaxation time. So I'm here to let you know that this episode is an enormous treat. Today, you are going to hear from, live on air, a person who is known as the greatest living American harmonica player, Mickey Raphael. Mickey Raphael plays with Willie Nelson. He has played with the greatest musicians in the world. Hang tight for a story of a time he gave Paul Simon a harmonica lesson. This guy is a national treasure, and we have him on the podcast thanks to my good friend, Kurt Squire, who is a professor of informatics at UC Irvine and has been geeking out on Mickey Raphael his entire adult life. So this conversation is not quite the traditional conversation we have here on Arts Educators Save the World, because Mickey has never really been Kurt's direct teacher. Kurt has been learning from Mickey from afar and has started a kind of digital mentorship relationship with him that has resulted in them getting together on occasion when Mickey is playing with Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan, all of these world-famous musicians. And so this conversation was an opportunity, really, for Kurt to ask Mickey about his ways of teaching and learning. So in many ways, Kurt was sort of a co-interviewer with me rather than me asking them about their relationship. And among the many, many treats you will get in this podcast are the spontaneous times that Mickey Raphael pulls a harmonica out of his desk drawer and just starts playing it for us. I wasn't sure what to expect out of this conversation, and it was such a treat for me as a non-professional musician to get a chance to have a person with so much expertise as Kurt, but who is not a professional musician, tease out some of Mickey's most interesting both performance strategies, but also strategies for working with other musicians. And he's just a delightful person, and I know that you are going to love this conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this show. I get to do two different kinds of introductions here on Arts Educators Save the World. Most times I'm introducing an artist who I'm meeting for the first time through their bio and through the art that they make. But the second kind of introduction is my favorite. When I get to bring a close friend into the conversation, and today is that kind of day. I'm thrilled to introduce Dr. Kurt Squire, professor of informatics at the University of California, Irvine. Kurt has spent his 25-year professional career as a researcher and professor, pioneering the field of video games and learning. He's raised millions of dollars for the field, for both building video games that improve kids' learning lives and studying why and how video games are such powerful vehicles for learning and change. He's worked with hundreds of students, undergraduates who are now making games, and graduate students who are now studying games and working at universities and professional game companies around the world. He's the author of 2 books, Video Games and Learning, Teaching and Participatory Culture in the Digital Age, and Making Games for Impact. With his bio, you might think we're here today to discuss the art of video games. But no, Just like I am a theater artist wearing an education professor costume, Kurt is a musician wearing an informatics professor costume. Kurt is an accomplished harmonica player who's been performing with bands his whole life. Most recently, Kurt gigged with Tommy Stinson, longtime guitarist for The Replacements and Guns N' Roses. And recently, Kurt and I got to talking about how he has learned to become the musician he is, given that he's never been to music school or worked extensively with a music teacher. Kurt pointed me to his hero, to the person many musicians would consider the greatest living harmonica player. And on this show, Kurt gets the chance to geek out with him and talk about how mentorship works across time and space. Kurt, welcome to Arts Educators Save the World.
Thanks, Erica. That was great. Now I'm blushing and also nervous that I am reminded that I am talking to one of my heroes, Mickey Raphael, who's one of the greatest harmonica players ever. You can hear him most recently. He and he's playing on a new Chris Stapleton single that's bound to be the hit of the summer in the for the F1 soundtrack. He's most known for playing with Willie Nelson for over 50 years, but he's played with almost everybody. Something I found, I'll just for fun say, like, has Mickey played with Tom Petty? Of course he has. He's played with Elton John, U2. He was on all those influential early Emmylou Harris records, Norah Jones, as I mentioned, Chris Stapleton. Cher, played on a Cher record, U2, Dolly Parton, Van Morrison. It just kind of goes on and on. He's shared stage with Bob Dylan, with Neil Young. Really has played with about everybody. He's one of my heroes. So if you have heard me play, you know that I steal a lot from him in his approach. So thanks for coming, Mickey. It's a real honor.
Well, thanks for having me. And we all steal from each other, I've got to say. So, there's only 12 notes on that damn thing. So it's
Yeah, so I've got a bunch of questions. I've got more than we could possibly do. But on that note, so we mostly go by ear, right? We mostly listen to what we play. And before YouTube or, before streaming, you really had to buy a record, get it. For me, at least, the number of harmonica players I saw or heard was actually pretty rare. It was rare that I saw someone who was more accomplished play. Can you talk a little bit about how you learned, how you got going? And did you have like instructional books at all? I think those may not have even existed then.
Well, I bought I think the book was called Blues Harmonica. I still have it somewhere that Tony Glover wrote.
I've got
that's to me is the Bible of of books about the harmonica. But there's so many great teachers online now on YouTube. Jason Ritchie is an incredible player, and he has some great instructional stuff. But there's just a lot. In fact, in case somebody ever calls me and asks if I teach, I don't. But because I don't know how to explain what I do. But there's so many great teachers out there, that do it a lot better than me. My secret is I know where to do it.
Do you ever go and check those things out ever? Are you ever like, how's so-and-so doing?
Oh, yeah. Because if there's something like, if I'm trying to learn a particular song, I can go and ask for the tabs, on it just to make sure, if there's a note I can't really hear or I can't find, I'll find the tabs. And they're pretty basic. They're not really exact. So that'll help me, or I'll go just compare. I'll go to one of the teaching sites. Like there's several different ways to play a particular solo or a song with like different positions on the harmonica. I might go and see what one teacher is saying is the correct way to do it. So I use it periodically.
I want to go back for both of you. For listeners, we've talked with other sort of musician, artist, mentor combos, and almost always, whether it's the voice or the piano or other, string instruments, there's a pretty intensive student-teacher instructional relationship. And I'm curious, first of all, if there's something unique about the harmonica that makes teaching and learning a fundamentally different act than with other instruments, but also to hear from both of you, like, how does a person decide, harmonica is my instrument, right? Like many of us are given a stringed instrument in elementary school, right, to try out. Many of us are given piano lessons. So, how does a person decide, like, nope, it's harmonica for me, and here's how I'm going to pick it up, and here's how I'm going to learn it?
I think it's after they've given up playing guitar and drums, at the last thing left. It's like the last man standing. Okay, there's a harmonica. Let's try it before I get a real job. It's one of those instruments that you have to teach yourself. Now you can be guided along the way by a mentor, but which I was by several, but it's not. You can't sit down and somebody can't show you the moves because it's all by ear. I mean, you can't see the notes you're playing. If I told Kurt play hole number 4, or somebody told me play hole number 4, if I could hear, if he played it, if I heard the tone, I'd know exactly where it is. But you can't look down at the harmonica and count 4 holes, or you could see it, and then by the time you got it to the mouth, you might be playing hole number 5. So it's not like you can look down at the frets and see it. So there's a lot of ear training, or a lot of, definitely a lot of ear use and recognizing tones.
Something I think that's unique, Erica, to Mickey, and probably why I sort of glommed onto him so much, is that many harmonica players either really dug maybe the Blues Brothers for people of a certain age, or they like that front man in rock, I'm gonna be the front man. And I started playing because all of my friends had guitars, and I was in college and I was so far behind them, and I really wanted to play with them. I was actually managing friends' bands, and one of them finally bought me a harmonica, and I found it was a way to play with friends. Like, oh, there's 95 guitar players and I'm the one harmonica player, so I can play with all you guys. And so I really like it as an accompany instrument because you can play with all these different sort of players, but it's pretty rare that I think people orient to the instrument that way. Most people seem to think more of a front man, and Mickey's really, to me, the accompanist par excellence as far as how do you connect with musicians, bring things out of what they're trying to do in a song and so on.
I've learned or carved a niche into being a support artist, supporting the guy that stands in the middle. And jokingly one night I asked Willie, I said, when do I get to stand in the middle? And he said, anytime you want. So I haven't really, wanted to, but it's basically a front man instrument, but I don't sing, and to just be an instrumentalist can get kind of boring if there's no lyrics. A little harmonica goes a long way.
Have you always been a harmonica player, Mickey? Like, was that your first instrument, or you sort of joked like when you can't play the guitar, you can't play the drums? Did you try to be a guitarist first, or have you always been drawn?
I had electric guitars and stuff when I was growing up and played in garage bands, but I really didn't do the work, and I really wasn't very good. I played the tuba in marching band in high school, mainly just to get out of PE. I wasn't in love with the instrument. They came to my gym class and said, we need a volunteer. We'll let you out of PE. And I volunteered. I didn't know what it was going to be. It could have been anything. And they said, we just need you to carry this tuba in the marching band. And eventually they taught me how to play. So that was fun. But after carrying, a 45-pound instrument on my neck, in the hot summer in a wool uniform, I thought the harmonica might be an alternative way to go, because I love music and I wanted to be a musician. And then I'd heard, several, I heard Bob Dylan and Neil Young, and all these guys, playing. And I thought, well, this is kind of what I want to do.
I'm fascinated by this idea that there's no visual aspect to learning the instrument, which I think is part of what makes this teaching and learning situation unique. And so given that, how do you learn? I know by ear, but get nerdy with it. How do you learn
You just carry one all the time, drive people crazy. They tell me, I don't really remember this, but they tell me that, during lunch at school, in high school, I used to just go outside and walk around the grounds, playing my harmonica, but so the harmonica basically is this wide, and there's 1, 2, 3, there's 10 holes on it. You blow and draw. Each is a different note. So that's 20 notes. And if you spend enough time, you kind of master where all that is, where all the notes are. And it's just by repetition, just doing it over and over again. And when I first started out, a friend of my dad's that gave me my first harmonica, I might have been 8 or 9 or 10 years old, said, just if you sound out, just make up songs, or if you can play Oh Susanna, I'll give you this harmonica. So, just by hit and miss, you figure out how to play songs, and I won my harmonica for Oh Susanna. But it's just repetition, really.
But if you fast forward, some of the more advanced techniques, like have gone through periods of being obsessed with your vibrato. Technique like that is really hard to explain. It's hard to figure out how you even get it. I've always wondered how yours developed, and like, did you sort of just pick out that players were doing that?
Well, I was hanging out a little bit with Donnie Brooks, who was one of my first mentors. And he, after I was playing for 5, 6, 7 years, he says, you got to work on your vibrato. And I would listen to him, and I don't remember if I put my hand on his neck or where it was coming. I think it was coming from the throat. But I remember I met him. We played a little gig in the Hamptons, and he was living in New York, and he came to it. And he said, work on your vibrato. And so I knew what it sounded like in my head. So I would just experiment. It probably took me a year to get to where, it's like anything, like with a harmonica, when you're playing a lick, you'd play a group of notes and it's like, oh my God, you'd have this epiphany, that pattern works. And that's like a blues pattern. So in trial and error, when I finally did hit the vibrato, I'd go back and think, okay, how did I just do that? That was it for a split second. I think I got a hold of it. So it's kind of, it's like spelunking.
Musical spelunking.
Everything is that way, like a single note, a bent note, a blow. Every single thing is like, I don't know. Oh, I think I just.
Yeah. Exactly. Like my first epiphany, or the biggest, was I went to see a concert with Canned Heat. They were, let's see, that harmonica I just had was a weird, I think it was it's not a real tuning. It's a melody tuning, but I'm trying to find something.
For listeners, there's an amazing drawer rifling happening right now, where in my mind I can't see the drawers, but I'm picturing like 50 harmonicas just in a drawer.
Wow.
No, actually, if you went up into my studio, there's probably 1,000 in there.
Oh my God.
So I think at this Canned Heat concert, I went home and started there was a harmonica player in the band, and I was so inspired. I went home. I think I played that lick there just accidentally, and it's like, oh my God, there's this pattern, to a method to the madness. So that was my first epiphany, seeing Canned Heat. And ironically enough, their big song was a song called On the Road Again. And this is when I was about 15 years old, 15 or 16, that I saw them.
Might have heard of it.
Well, no, it's a different song. Totally different song.
On the road. Yeah.
It had nothing to do with Willie.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know this song. I'm going to have to look it up.
It was just like this blues shuffle.
You know it.
Okay.
Yeah. But to give you an example of how hard it can be to learn this, Erica. So Mickey mentioned as an offhand there that he had a melody maker, which are tuned a little differently. And I've, for my entire life, wondered if you had them or played them, because there's a couple of notes sometimes where I think you're grabbing that.
I don't play them that much. I do if I have to play a melody.
Yeah.
What is this? No, this may not be a melody player.
So in the pre-internet days, Erica, I would sit around like on Michelle Shock's Come a Long Way. I'm like, is Mickey playing a melody maker? I don't know.
No, I'm bending. I'm really struggling bending.
Well, you didn't struggle. So I'm sitting there, in Ohio thinking like, does he bend this? Because it's a very hard note to hit, and to hit it that prominently in the melody, like you don't want to miss it. And I would miss it all the time.
Yeah, I would miss it. That took a long time.
And so finally I'm like, he's probably just playing a melody maker.
No, that took a long time to get to. I mean, to get that solo on there.
Yeah.
Just again, for the listeners, what is a melody maker and how is that different from a traditional harmonica?
Okay, well, the traditional harmonica player doesn't have a complete scale. I mean, it has like a C harmonica, or does it? C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. But it's complicated. On C harmonica, I play in the key of G, which would give me the F, not an F sharp, which you need in the key of G. So you have the flat seventh. A melody maker has that seventh raised. So while you're playing in second position, which means a C harmonica in the key of G, and I don't know that much about theory, but
and it gives you the A as well, I think, right?
Yeah, yes, and the bottom, which you can get bending. So don't ask; it just is.
Well, what I love about it, right, is that the theory is built into the tool, and so instead of working the outside in, right? Learning the theory and then applying that to the piano, for example, right? Where everything is on the piano and you have to know the theory in order to leverage the tool. Here, it's in the tool, right? And it sounds like you experiment with these tools.
See, if the note's not there, that second note, okay, here's the first note is there. The second note, it doesn't exist. I'm bending it. So in a melody maker, that note there.
It's got really good tone.
And vibrato. See. That's how I got that note, by bending the note, bending this note. But on a melody maker, that note exists as a pure tone.
What's interesting, Eric, is a lot of harmonica players too are very resistant to theory. I certainly was, to get a little, because you're kind of like, you learn most of it on your own, you figure it out. And I at least had a music teacher, because I played on stage with him, who was like, it would be helpful to learn some things like what's a relative minor, how can you use different keys. So my friend Adrian taught me a lot in the practice. Mickey, something I've been curious about your career, because you sort of catapulted pretty quickly to the point where you're playing with Willie. I mean, Willie, I don't know if he was quite as famous at that point, but in your 20s, you still probably had a lot to learn about rigs and gigs and playing. Like, how did you have mentors of other sorts in those times, like in the early 70s?
Not really. But Donnie was it. Really, because he was the only other one doing what I was doing. He was playing with Waylon for a while. Yeah. So as far as rigs, I was just trying different amplifiers and stuff all the time. I really don't know that much about it, about gear, even though I've got a bunch of old vintage Fender amps.
Yeah.
And so a rig, again, just for everybody, the rig is how you make the harmonica how you electrify it so that it...
Yeah, it's your instrument. I mean, the harmonica is just the little harmonica, everything, the microphone to the amplifiers, to the
That's
whatever
the rig.
kind of...
The collection of those things is the rig.
Yeah, that color your sound too, or amplify you.
Would you say that's all part of being a harmonica player? Like it also sounds like the job, for lack of a better word, includes much more than just being a really outstanding player of this 10-hold metal
Well,
box.
what you do, 10-hold toy. Yes. And then you amass huge amounts of electronics and bells and whistles. And then you get to a peak where you've got so much gear in your rig that you start whittling it away and get rid of stuff till you get back down to your just playing the harmonica.
To give you a good example of that, though, Erica, so I just saw Mickey playing with Willie like 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And you were playing a little maybe dirtier than I would have anticipated. So you can play straight in through the PA, like here's like the singer would do, or you can hold a microphone and cup it. And when you play with acoustic people, usually the rule of thumb is that you play sort of clean. So if you think of like Neil Young, Bob Dylan, for the blues players out there like Sonny Terry, they're playing straight in the microphone. But which Mickey does a lot, but also like in the last gig, they were playing mostly all with acoustic guitars, bass, very stripped down, but he was holding and cupping a microphone a little bit to give it a little bit of a dirtier sound and a little bit of texture, which I thought was really cool and really worked. Can you talk a little bit about your thinking behind like those kinds of decisions and just like what either feels right, or how do you think about when you want to plug in versus not in a gig like that?
Yeah, well, my favorite sound is just like you said, walking up to a mic, to an acoustic mic, and playing. But I want a little more ability, so I don't want to be married to just standing in front of a stand. But I use a really high quality acoustic microphone, and I just a ribbon mic. I just hold it in my hand to give it just so I have some mobility. I'm not tied down to a stand, and it fattens up the tone a little bit, I think, is the idea. And but then when I want a really totally clean sound on just a couple of songs, I walk up and just stand in front of the mic.
I wanted to go back to what you said, Mickey, about how you sort of build up a whole smorgasbord of gear and then you strip it back down. And what really resonates to me about that in like the trajectory of expertise in the arts is I think across art forms, that is very much how professional artists acquire expertise, right? It's like you start with the bare art form. And then as you become more expert, you think like, oh, I need this. I was thinking about it as a theater artist, right? And I make a lot of work where we're devising plays, right? We're taking found stories and making plays out of them. And I notice with artists that like, once they start to get into it, they're like, I'm going to make this prop and I need this costume. And I need, okay, if I'm going to play a mom, I need a mom wig. And if I'm going to do, right, I need this and I need this. And then I notice that 10 years down the line, my most experienced artists are just themselves, right? They've come back to like, I don't need the mom wig. I don't need the, apron. I don't need the, all I need is the way in which I'm embodying this character. So that resonates for me. Kurt, I don't know, you were nodding, so I think probably it also resonates for you. I'm wondering kind of what you think about that.
It definitely makes sense to me. I mean, I think with the harmonica, I think there, especially early on, there's maybe a belief that you can make a lot of things through gadgets or tones. A real epiphany I actually had was midway through my career. I was hanging out at Echo Park Studios in Bloomington, and they were remixing the Farm Aid recordings. Mm-hmm. And so I walk in, and they have those up, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you've got like, what are you doing?" And my friend Mark was mixing them, and I'm like, "Wait, hold on. So you can just show me like Willie Nelson's guitar trigger, but you can put it through a Marshall amp?" And he's like, "Yeah, totally." And then we did that. And I said, "Oh my God, you've got Mickey on there. Can you show me what Mickey would sound like amplified?" And what really blew me away was that he sounded like Mickey. he sounded like him. So at that phase in particular of my development, like it was very tempting. Oh, I just need to get the right microphone, right combat. It's like, no, you need to go into the woodshed and get a sound that you're happy with and that sounds good. And then that will kind of express itself through everything. But you don't be looking outwardly. You should be looking more inwardly.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because you can, out of boredom, I guess I searched all kinds of different gear, and I've got a friend that tells me I should be, expanding my sound, and, but if you want my harmonica to sound like an organ, hire an organ player, which I'm just realizing, I was looking for the best Leslie sound in a box or something. And, when it comes down to it, I just really want to I don't want all the bells and whistles, because then you're really masking your true sound, with all the accoutrements and stuff. So, and I think the older I get, or the more experience I get or have, I'm not as manic, to play so much. Too, we were in the studio recording a song, working on a new Willie record the other day, and he cut a tune that I had written, and the producer said, "Do you want to take the solo on this?" And it's like, not really. I wrote this song. I don't have to play on it now, So I think I'm more confident, and I'm not like going me, more, you know.
You definitely play less, I've noticed. And I think there's some parts that to me have a real courage to them as well. And Eric, I was curious to get your take on this. So there are songs like Breathe, or songs where you'll just play one note or even just a chord, like the most simple thing that works. And I would not have been courageous enough, I think.
Well, that's hard. See, like, when somebody asks me if I can teach them to play, I can't. But I could teach you not to play. I could teach you when not to play, which I think is really important. I don't want to be going to a jam, or when I was starting out jamming with my friends and they go, "Oh, great, Mickey's here with his harmonica." Again, a little goes a long way, and harmonica players have a real chip on their shoulder because you got nothing to hide behind or hold, and you end up playing way too much, and that's a real curse of playing the harmonica.
Speaking of jams, could you share with Erica and with the listeners your story about how you met Willie? And something I've always been curious about is how you, as a harmonica player, navigated that first sort of jam session, because these are not normal harmonica songs, right? And then if you could just tell that story and maybe a little bit what that was like for you.
Yeah. Well, I got a call from Darryl Royal, who is the coach of the University of Texas football team. And he was a real patron of the arts, a friend of Willie's, and a real music fan. And Texas was playing Arkansas in Dallas for a bowl game. And he said, he got word to me and says, "Hey, we're having a little picking party at my hotel after the game. I want to meet you. Bring your harmonicas. Come over if you want to hang out, bring your harmonicas. And some of my friends will be there, passing the guitar around." So I went, and Willie was there, and Charlie Pride, and about 30 people in the room. And they would just kind of pass the guitar around. I kind of knew who Willie was. I had one record of his that I had got from RCA, and I just grabbed it because it had a cool cover. I didn't know anything about his music. And so Willie picked up the guitar. He's sitting on the floor in the coach's hotel room. And he starts playing Nightlife, or Funny How Time Slips Away. And I had recognized these songs from Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin. And he said, then I realized that he's the guy that wrote these songs. So I'm just have my little harmonica, and I'm trying to play along with him, which I knew the songs, but they were pretty sophisticated for me at 20 years old to play.
Those are not, you can't just throw out a blues riff on those. I mean, maybe Nightlife, but you really can't and have them make sense. Like, I would think of myself, I'd be in over my head and sort of panicking, but
I think he played maybe Mountain Dew or something. Well, after that, Willie goes, "Hey, if you ever hear we're playing anywhere, come sit in." So I thought this might be fun. And they were playing, I saw that he was playing a benefit concert for a volunteer fire department in Waxahachie, which is south of Dallas. And this was a couple of weeks later. So I drove down there, and they were set up in the gymnasium on the floor. I sat in with the band, but I didn't know any of these songs. And he had played, the band played Fraulein, which is a great two-step country song. He played it 4 times that night because people like to dance. So Willie was basically playing a sock hop, And I just kind of, the songs are 4 chords. They're not terribly hard, but I really didn't know any of them. but it was fun, And so we go back and we have go to a truck stop at 1 a.m. and have breakfast. And I was getting ready to go back to Dallas, and I thought, well, I'll have one more cup of coffee. And during that last cup of coffee, Willie says, "Hey, we're going to New York in a couple of months. Why don't you go with us?" So now if I know that Willie said, "Hey, we're going anywhere, in a month," it was like, I said, well, let's see what happens in that month, But I really hung on to that couple of months thing and kept in touch with him, and then just started showing up, finding out where they were playing, and going to his gigs and sitting in with him. And they were playing some rough places in the 70s. So
this is what harmonica players do.
Yeah.
So I know you've said a few times, Mickey, that you don't know how to teach somebody to play the harmonica, but do you consider yourself an educator? Like, are there ways in which you think of yourself as an educator?
I could teach somebody that can already play. But I don't think because it takes a long time. Like I gave Paul Simon some lessons. So, but he wanted to learn one of the most complicated songs ever that I could barely juke. He wanted to learn juke, the Little Walter song. I said, first we have to learn to play one note. Yeah. And that's a technique that could take you 5 minutes or a year. So we had dinner one night and he brought his harmonica and I kind of showed him what this song entailed, but he did what we needed to build the skills, his basic skills. And he's such a perfectionist and he wanted to learn it note for note and learn to play right.
Wow.
Which I couldn't even play it note for note.
Yeah, me neither.
So, it's like I can tell you, okay, learn to play one note at a time and then come back to me in a year.
You know what's interesting about that? And Kurt, I want to turn to you and ask you, because when we were talking, you were talking about Mickey as a teacher, as an educator. And I'm curious how you would describe Mickey as an educator, knowing that teaching the harmonica is less about one-on-one interactions around particular techniques and more about some of these, larger artistic decisions, making the decision and then having to go and learn how to do that work, which is really an individual process. So can you talk a little bit about Mickey as an educator and what that means to you?
I mean, I think it's almost that, leading by example, or the life that you live, or the way that you are, people can sort of learn from. And for me, there have been a bunch, everything from how do you approach a song, when not to play. I think I mentioned this before, but I had a real epiphany listening to Stardust back in the day. I was really struggling with some techniques and not really happy. And I was trying to play some, probably like Orange Blossom Special. I was somewhere between like trying to play these really fancy harmonica parts. And I picked up Stardust a little late, I confess, but from the record shop and put it on. And it just blew me away, how a single note or playing the melody, playing it with feeling, timing, that those things are what matter. And what you're trying to do usually is convey emotion or inspire, channel maybe emotion and not like show off. And that record for me just did it in spades. And there are any number of very large and small artistic decisions, but I think even just how do you go out in the world as an artist? How do you live your life? How do you treat other people? Everyone, from my distant perspective, everyone associated with Willie and the family just does that really well, particularly fostering community and treating other artists and other musicians well, so they feel like they're a part of something. Yeah, it's just really important to me.
Well, and what I hear in that is that being a professional artist, being a successful professional artist is so much more than being the best at your thing. And particularly the collaborative and community and support-based aspects of musicianship are really coming through here for me.
Yeah.
And I hear that when we talk to a lot of different folks. I mean, we talked to Jonathan Groff, right, who's sort of the current hottest Broadway actor. And he said the exact same thing, which is what he learned from his elementary school teacher was to be a generous artist. And that's what he brings into every rehearsal room, right? He's playing Bobby Darin on Broadway right now. And what he brings is his spirit of collaboration into that rehearsal room.
Yeah, I mean, especially for the harmonica player, because very few people are saying, I need to have a harmonica here. I think there's a saying that you want, as a side person, you want the artist to look good, sound good, and feel good. And that's what I see as my job as.
Mostly look good.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So we make them look much better. But yeah, there rarely are people clamoring for you. You need to be easy to work with, fun to be around, make their lives better. Very little room for prima donna, I think.
Right. But you know what? I just thought about this. as far as mentorship, where you're saying, how do I teach? What Kurt is doing, it's a pre-mortem autopsy, trying to find a specific cause and manner of what we do. So it's dissecting, might be listening to me. I couldn't teach, but what I'm doing, he can pick apart like a post-mortem one.
Yeah. Well, and Kurt, it's probably not an accident that you are a teacher, right? And so, and you are, like me, a researcher of learning, right? And so you know how to do that kind of post-mortem that Mickey's talking about, because it's what we do when we study how people learn to do almost anything, right? So, you are maybe quite special in that way, in your ability to take, your understanding of how to pick apart how people learn something and apply it to this art form that you care so deeply about.
Yeah.
Plus, I could tell Kurt, okay, for this, if you want to know this lick, we draw on hole number 1, blow 2 and 3, draw on 3 and 4. Now, he would understand that and know exactly what I was talking about. To a real novice, just to say draw on hole number 1 could be very problematic, because when you're drawing on hole number 1, you might catch hole number 2 at the same time, and it's not going to make sense if you're not that precise.
Yeah.
So knowing the shorthand kind of in advance.
Or having technique, knowing the technique.
Mm-hmm.
So the basic technique.
Something else I think, though, when you're playing and listening to, because I've also played many of these songs that he plays on, and there is something. So in the cognitive science, it'd be almost like making expert cognition visible. Like, so I'm tackling a problem, and so I'm trying to play a song. Oh, let's see how he did it, and you go, oh, okay, that's. So that there, I can learn from that. Let's just say from the sort of modeling.
We brought it up a little bit at the beginning, but I'm wondering if you can talk about how YouTube has changed the way harmonica players learn their instrument, and whether you've seen a difference. Like, are there more harmonica players now because learning how to play is so much more accessible? Are the players different now? Is it sexier to be a harmonica player now because it's more accessible to people? I don't know. How has the advent of like fully accessible instruction changed the art form?
It's given me an outlet to learn. I think. What is the guy? I can't remember the guy's name, but he's got a website called Learn the Harmonica. Do you know the guy in England?
Yeah, I can't think of his name, but I know it. Yeah,
he's really good. And if I want to, I did a gig the other day where I had to play this Rolling Stones song, "Miss You," and it's a specific harmonica part. It's not something I would interpret. I wanted to play it note for note. So I thought I got it, but there's several ways to approach it. So I went on his website and said, do you teach this song? And he had the lesson for it up there. So it's, plus I can go to ChatGPT also if I have a question, and it'll search all the harmonica sites for stuff. So, I mean, it's a useful tool, and I guess it's more accessible, because if somebody's waiting on me to give them a lesson, they're out of luck, because I just don't have the patience, and I don't want to be found out as a fraud because I really don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, my sense is that it has made a lot of those techniques much more approachable. Like I said, I could go for years and not hear another harmonica player other than like records. I do think there's something that's lost about not playing with people, being present in the room, locking in with the musician, listening. That I worry that a lot of musicians are growing up not playing together in the sense of like jamming in a garage or just playing around a living room. Like, it's much more common, I think, to learn online. I've heard Rick Beato say that, the lack of number of bands that are coming up and more just sort of solo people working on their computers. I think something's lost there. But it is true that you can really see this happen. And actually, the harmonica email list that existed in the 80s and 90s was very similar. You could see all these techniques pop up where all of a sudden harmonica players are talking to each other, which we really hadn't.
You know what? You know how I really learned? I forgot about this. Was I had a buddy in high school who was learning to play the guitar, and he was a pretty good guitar player, and so I would just play with him, and he would, in practicing the guitar, learning to become a better guitar player, I could play along, and that was the best lesson you could get. So it's all trial and error, and if you have somebody who's trying to play a song that you're familiar with, and with some accompaniment, either on the piano or the guitar, it's a great way. And if they have the patience of Job, you can get a lot done.
All of my roommates definitely did.
So a lot of our listeners are themselves educators, and I think a lot of our listeners are music educators. And I'm wondering, given the informal, emergent nature of this particular instrument, but also the accessibility of it. So a thing that is inspiring to me is like, this is a practice that a lot of young people who maybe feel like musical education is not for them might be able to participate in. Like, what can music educators take from this conversation, from this relationship, from this way of thinking about music making?
Well, it goes against everything. It bypasses the music educator, really, at the beginning, because it's something you can teach yourself. So it's, but I've learned to read a little bit. I mean, I never really had a call to read, to have somebody write out notes and play specific melodies. Well, I did at the very beginning when I first started playing recording sessions, and I had to do something that had an orchestra there, and the guy wrote out all these parts. It's like, dude, I'm not a reader on the harmonica. And the producer's wife took me into the back studio and played the melody on the piano, and I learned it that way. So there is it is a big plus to learn how to read, but I didn't, and a lot of other harmonica players don't, because I kind of rely on my ear. And if it's something so specific that I can't get the melody in my head, there's other guys that do that, so I'll just take a pass on it. So I am limited. Now, do I want to go out and learn how to read? I don't know. Maybe, I don't have any call for it. That's the thing. If I was doing it every day, and I'm not a guy that'll sit and practice 4 hours a day, and that's what you need to do. And then if I never got a call to read a part or to play a part that's written, most the work I get is all inspired just by a lyric and being in the moment and not being prepared. I mean, having the skills, and like playing with Dylan, I went out on stage. Usually I would come out and I would know a melody of a song. If I was going to sit in with another band, I'd know the song, I'd know the melody, and the singer might look at me when it's time to play, and I could play a variation of the melody. With Bob, you had no idea what was going on. The tempo would change from day to day. And so I went out there. I finally figured out the way to do it is go out there with a completely clean mind. I mean, no preconceived ideas, and be totally in the moment. I mean, literally in the moment. And I would stand next to him, so I would watch his hands on the piano, and that was like conducting me. So that kind of stuff you can't write out. And you have to really rely on your instinct and intuition and skills and your musical taste and your fear of the guy.
Well, I think Willie set you up for at least some of that.
Oh, it's different. Yeah, because Willie's different every night. I tell people I still don't know what to play on Whiskey River. And that's the song we've started for 50 years.
3 times a night sometimes,
Yeah. But I have the freedom to change it and to, play different every night. So I try not to repeat myself.
Erica, to your point, I think two things Mickey said. One is your ear. So I think that realizing that training your ear is a part of early music. And then second, I would describe as making stuff up. When I was in grad school in Indiana, we played with a lot of music school dropouts. A lot of violinists would join our band, and you'd say like, okay, we'll make up a part. And it was not uncommon for people to look at you like, what do you mean make up a part? I'm like, yeah, listen, play something. And like, I play what's written down. And the idea that you would go that far in music without, to me, the two most sort of fundamental things, listening to someone and then responding and making something up, like that's music to me. So I think not shying away from that process. Now, what does that mean with a classroom full of 25 kids? I have no idea. Do you want recorder session jams or?
Well, do they teach, you have to teach improvisation. I think we did something with the LA Philharmonic, and the concertmaster, you know, the most prestigious chair in the LA Phil, was standing next to me, you know, scowling. And we were doing something with Willie. And so I said, at this part, you know, this part, let's, you know, on the one chord, on the C note, on the C chord, in this section, it's just, it stays on the one, stays on the C, just improvise, just play. He goes, well, what do you want me to play? I said, play whatever you feel like playing. Well, you got to write it out. It's like, no, just, wow. I mean, this is the concert. Now, I don't know if he couldn't or wouldn't, you know, there's still that too, you know, but they could, you could take any symphony, put it in front of them, and they'll play it perfectly immediately. But if I just said, just vamp on the one chord, just, you know, improvise, this guy either wouldn't or couldn't, you know?
Well, and it is a very like, you know, the radical version would be to say to music educators, what if you took a bottom-up approach to learning instrumentation rather than a top-down, right? So rather than giving every kid a recorder and a piece of music and saying, let's all play this together, right? Can you start with, what does it sound like? And what does it sound like to make music? And not to make a song, a particular song, but what does it sound like to make music? I think, you know, that's a radical pedagogical move, but one that, I don't know, could be exciting and could keep more kids interested in music making for longer. Kurt, last question. What's your last best thing you want to ask Mickey to take us out from our conversation today?
I have about 95, but I will go with I'll go with one that here, I'll go with one. You have a real distinctive approach to rhythm or being a part of the band. I'm thinking on things like your part on City of New Orleans, on You've Got Gold, John Prine. It's really interesting to me because I can imagine when someone called you in for those sessions and thought like, oh, you'll get like a harmonica solo or something, but you play the song rhythmically in a way that I don't think many other people do or anyone else does. How did you come up with that? It's a very unique, it's not really a classic trained rhythm. How did you come up with that? Was it just sort of screwing around or if you could talk a little about your creative process on something like that?
That was specifically taught to me by my mentor, Donnie Brooks. And
really?
It was a rhythm thing he called chucking. And again, if I can find out, so you inhale, and actually the technique, I played on a Charlie McCoy record where he was playing this, you know, beautiful melody, but he didn't do this rhythm or didn't want to mess with learning it, you know, because it took me a long time. So he had me come in and play the rhythm part while he
Charlie
played.
Did?
Oh yeah,
that's amazing.
He cut City of New Orleans. So it's a technique that Donnie told me, and where you inhale and cut off the air is all I can say. How I really do it.
Can you do it?
So, and that's a rhythmical thing. And I know that you're not always going to get hired for a session to play a solo. So I had to come up with some other thing so I could still be in the band and still be heard and still play some music without, you know, when you had a steel or a fiddle and a guitar and they all want solos, you know, I had to find a way to include myself without that assured that I was going to get some real estate there. So that rhythm thing, you know, plays well with others.
And for the listeners out there to that point, there's clips. There's a great clip of him playing with the Highwaymen. So you've got, you know, Johnny Cash, Willie, Chris Christopherson, Waylon, and Mickey's up there with that.
And to that point, I think one of the takeaways that I want to take us out with is this idea that mentorship is not just about the one-on-one instruction, right? That this whole ecology of performance recordings of performance and conversation from mentors across space and time that you can literally hear in recordings is all itself part of the education ecology. And this is something that I'm always talking to people about, is the identification of education with a teacher really constrains what's possible for all of us in terms of growth as artists, right? So like you said, you don't need a one-on-one lesson with Mickey Raphael to build your harmonica education, right? This is a whole ecology. And because what I'm also hearing is that you all are such generous musicians and that you think about your artistry as serving the art form rather than serving yourself, that actually makes the learning for others more accessible. And so, I thank you for that. I mean, I know that sounds odd, but it is a way to extend the ecology of being teachers and learners of music, is yourself being a generous musician, because that's how the Kurt Squires of the world learn to become the musicians that they are. So thank you for that. Thank you for this amazing opportunity. Kurt, thanks for bringing Mickey into this weird little arts educators save the world space. Our listeners are going to be delighted. I'm thrilled. Thank you both so much for sharing this hour with me.
Thank you. And we saved the world.
Oh man, I am just in awe of having the experience and the chance to just be in conversation with one of our greatest living musicians and get an hour of his time to play for us, to talk with us about teaching and learning. I think for me, hearing them both say over and over again, it's one of these instruments that you have to teach yourself, but then spend a lot of time talking about the fact that teaching yourself actually involves engaging with other people in all of these different ways, whether that's, digitally through YouTube or through conversations or by being in a band with musicians playing other instruments, that the notion of teaching yourself actually means fundamentally collaborating with and learning from others. I also, I don't know, I hadn't really thought, frankly, much about what kind of instrument is a harmonica and what does that mean about the kind of artist that you are. So I really loved hearing them talk about a harmonica player as being fundamentally a supporting artist and what that means for musicianship. First of all, Doug, I know that you don't know Kurt super well, but knowing that he is committed to a form of artistry where he's a support person is super on brand with Kurt's personality, right. And totally makes sense to me. And that this concept of learning to be a supporting artist is really about this trajectory of expertise from not knowing anything to doing all the things to doing too much to figuring out then how to pare that back so that the artistry itself supports the rest of the music, was really fascinating to me to think about sort of and in contrast with very much the conversation that we had in the last episode with Dan and Gina about becoming a pianist and what it takes to be a pianist, and that the harmonica, the trajectory of expertise for harmonica learning is a fundamentally different trajectory. And so requires different kinds of teaching and learning strategies. And that was really cool to hear them articulate.
Yeah, it was great. I just wanted the camera to turn around so that we could see inside of Mickey's drawers, because I wanted to know what was in that space. Yeah.
I know. Well, and the spontaneity of it all really reminded me. I mean, I think this is true in most art forms, but certainly in music, this idea that part of the expertise is in this ability to improvise, right? And they talked a little about how you teach somebody to improvise and how that is itself a skill, not only of musicianship in general, but of the harmonica in particular, because it's a certain kind of improvisation that's different than lead improvisation, right? It's not solo improvisation. Right. It's like
it's supporting
background,
improvisation.
Supporting improvisation, which was a new and really cool concept for me to listen to. And to get to hear just done live on air was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't really improvise well until you already are an expert to some degree.
Right.
Like you can't start by learning how to do improv.
Right. And I heard Kurt trying to pull the thread of like, what does it mean to learn to do that? And how has he learned to do it? And how has he learned to do it in this kind of asynchronous conversation between experts like Mickey and then his own practice and his own play with bands on stage. I also got to hear Kurt play. He was touring with Tommy Stinson, the guitarist from The Replacements and Guns N' Roses, among other things. And Kurt was sitting in on harmonica for a few tunes with Tommy Stinson. So I got to see Kurt do his thing recently. And he and I kind of chatted after the show a little bit about this concept of like, how do you learn to be a supporting artist and a supporting improviser? So that was also really fun to catch live and in person. Cool. Speaking of improvisation, I hear that you have brought me a question for which I'm going to improvise 3 things right here live on this podcast.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple question though. I just, knowing that I don't know how to play the harmonica and that you don't know how to play the harmonica, but we were just talking with people that are world-renowned at playing the harmonica. What 3 songs do you actually think you could play if you had 3 minutes to learn them?
On the harmonica?
Yes.
Mary Had a Little Lamb.
I knew that would be number 1. One thing.
Linus and Lucy, because we learned that on the recorder when I was in 4th grade.
That's a little jazzy tricky. Cool.
I mean, it just goes do 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 do.
But there's a bridge.
That one. Do 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 do. I would not be able to do that. But because the harmonica.
Who needs a harmonica? We got
is a supporting instrument.
True.
And Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
I had a feeling that one might be one. Yeah. The early piano songs. Yeah.
Three things, 1 surprise. Thank you, elementary school music teacher Barbara Ames, who you've also heard on this podcast, for teaching us all Linus and Lucy when we were in the 4th grade. And now, listeners, I have 3 ways that you can stay involved with our community. You can help us to spread the word about our podcast, and we can bring even more joy about the arts and education to the world. You can like, subscribe, and review our podcast on all of the platforms where you get your podcasts. It really raises the profile of what we're doing and gives more people access to our magic.
One thing.
You can write to us at artseducatorspodcast@gmail.com with comments, suggestions, guests you'd like to see on the show, or even if you'd like to be a guest yourself.
2 things.
And you can visit our website at artseducatorspodcast.com for content and episodes and a contact information and additional fun stuff about the work that we do.
3 things. Get it.
3 things. Get it. Onward together, everyone.
Arts Educators Save the World is hosted by Erica Rosenfeld Halverson and produced and co-hosted by me, Alec Lev. Our executive producer is Doug Matica, and our audio producer is Justin Asher. Special thanks to our collaborators, the brilliant and talented Kate Baldwin, and our great friends at Story Pirate Studios, Lee Overtree, Benjamin Salka, and Amy Fiore. Original music is by Dan Lipton, and our artwork is by Lyra Evans. Check out our website designed by Cole Locasio at www.artseducatorspodcast.com. We're on Instagram at Arts Educators Podcast, and you can write to us with your questions and comments at contact@artseducatorspodcast.com. You can also find us at a place called YouTube. And wherever you're listening, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps the show. We're proud to be sponsored in part by the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the Gibb Faculty Fellowship. Arts Educators Save the World was created by Erica Rosenfeld Halverson and Alec Lev.